Okay, says we're live, so we're back
All right.
on.
So, in responding to Shaq, I think we still have 60 days to go. It's still too early to tell. We've got the first debate and probably the only debate between Harris and Trump in 4 days. And if you're a lib such as myself, you're looking at the stuff that Trump has said recently, which is nonsensical. And there's a clamoring among libs on Twitter that the press needs to pay more attention to the nonsense that Trump says, because if you ignore it or you try to explain it away, they're calling it sane washing, that you're trying, you're doing his job for him, making him sound less crazy than he is. However, even if the press does do that, if you look back at 2016, something like 600 newspapers endorsed Hillary Clinton versus, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 newspapers endorsing Trump. Didn't make a difference. What the press did.
Well, okay, so let me just address a couple of points there. So, firstly, the criticism of the media from the left in 2016 and somewhat in 2020 as well was that they were giving too much airtime to Donald Trump by constantly talking about, why he's nonsensical, as you put it. By the way, producers, I still don't see anything on YouTube. The second thing I just want to address there, Rick, is you've described yourself as being a liberal. Now, in Australia, we have, as most countries, we have 2 major political parties. We've got the Labor Party, which is, loosely speaking, the equivalent of the Democrats. I say loosely because we're different countries. We have different ideals, similar culture, but they are different. And we have the Liberal Party, which is essentially the Republican Party. Now, again, there are, I think, much more significant differences between the Liberal Party and the Republicans, but for lack of better description, that's the centre-right party in Australia. Now, I've always considered myself to be a liberal based on the idea that you want low levels of government interference, that you want big corporations to be held accountable, especially when they are doing things that are abusive to the population, or damaging to the environment, or damaging to, people in general. We might just need to mute you, Kim, while you're not talking. We've got some background coming in from you. Yeah, so those are all the sorts of ideals that we have. And of course, at the center of those ideals are freedom. So when I look at the United States, and I accept I don't live there, I look at the United States and I hear some of the policies, and it's not about personality. I don't really care about the personalities that much. When I look at the United States as an outsider, I look at, would I want to invest in the country? And if I did invest in the country, if I did want to start a business in the country, what would be the advantages and what would be the disadvantages? Now, there's a whole host of different advantages, but there is also some disadvantages that come into play. And most notably at the moment is the idea the fact it's even proposed or it's even discussed in any way, the idea of putting a tax on unrealized capital gains at 25% or at any percent. I mean, that just sounds absolutely ludicrous to me. And the thing about that is I would consider that to be confiscatory. I don't understand for the life of me why people who consider themselves to be liberals are actually supporting ideas, whether it be Republican or Democrats, but at the moment it seems to be the progressive wing of the Democrats, why they would support ideas that give government and big corporations more power and more control over people's everyday lives.
So I would describe myself as an ignorocrat. I just want, like, minimally competent, government that I don't have to pay attention to every day. And also a realist, that 25% tax on unrealized capital, that will never, ever come to pass.
Then why propose it? Why propose it? Like, what was the idea? Let's propose something that everybody's going to hate just for shits and giggles.
But
I mean, Silicon Valley have complained about it. One of her surrogates went on to either MSNBC or CNN. One of the campaign surrogates have said that. And the billionaire from Shark Tank, I'll just
Mark Cuban.
He came out and said that he was told privately this would never be done. Then why propose it in the first place?
Because it's
You know, I think there's a lot of
your
unforced
politics.
errors going on in her campaign that the Republicans are going to use. Like, for example, her latest ad that I saw where she's talking about border security, and she actually features a part of the border wall that Trump built. I mean, in her campaign ad, I mean, it's lunacy. What are you doing?
It's her
Well,
hand.
hold on. Let's go back to that specific policy, because there is one part of it that I think you brought up that might have a shot, but still probably not. Which is, if you have like $8 billion in unrealized capital gains, and you use that as collateral to get a $6 billion loan, then maybe you pay some percent on the loan because you're using that unrealized gain to get money you can spend.
Sure. So I totally accept that. But what I have a problem with is when let's say Kamala Harris out of the equation. When got her name, Elizabeth Warren, she sort of had some of these ideas, okay, and she knows better. So people on the right will be dismissive of Kamala Harris, but Elizabeth Warren actually knows better. She went to Harvard, she studied these things. Why? That all the major economists are talking about having a progressive consumption tax as being the most efficient way of doing it, and also they're talking about broadening the tax base. I have said multiple times that I think that people in similar economic positions should be paying similar amounts. But this idea of soaking the rich, all that's going to happen with these sorts of policies is you're going to drive capital offshore. You're going to end up with all of your major companies and all of your startup companies being bought by companies that are owned by overseas investors, because they're the ones that don't have to pay the capital gains tax in your country in the first place. Now, if you have a look at countries that have done things like this, let's take the United Kingdom, where I'm a citizen. The United Kingdom has a tax system called non-domicile taxation. What it does is it allows people who weren't born in the UK to be able to live there. They're taxable on their worldwide income, but they only pay tax on the money that they actually bring into the UK. So whatever they don't bring into the UK is taxable at a rate of 0% until they bring it in. Now, the United Kingdom has decided in its wisdom that they're going to get rid of that tax because the Labour Party was complaining about it so much. What have we seen in the UK as a result? The UK was already in a terrible position. Now, if you go through Belgravia, I've got a friend of mine that lives in Belgravia. He's just moved out. He's just sold up. And he's told me, he showed me a video earlier this week of mansion after mansion after mansion there that's completely empty.
So
okay, the millionaires and billionaires.
London, right?
Yeah, it's one of the nicest places in London. That's right. So the millionaires and billionaires off the UK are fleeing. They're leaving. If they've got the opportunity to go to Ireland, they'll go to Ireland. Otherwise, they'll go to Malta, or they'll look for somewhere else. That's the thing. I don't understand. Let me just finish this last point, Mark. I don't understand why people who are liberals will accept that you want to live in a democracy that is made up of representatives of the people, and when the people continually tell you that they don't want something, you force it on them anyway, and then wonder why people across the Western world are dissatisfied with government, and people that have got more resources and just want to be left alone, like myself and Nick, have just gone, to hell with this, we're out of here.
You can count on the U.S. government to not do anything. This has been the most do-nothing Congress in all of history. So people can come up with all these plans, but if the Congress is tied, equal numbers of Democrats and Republicans, with no middle of the road people who are interested in making them work together, then nothing gets done regardless of all these freaking plans. Now, something will have to change in the next 10 or 20 years because of budget problems, Social Security, Medicare, because of the changing economy that's going to be increasingly disrupted by technology. But the U.S. government is going to lag in any in changing it. We're going to
but again, Rick, I've got to direct this in the place where most of my family live in the United States. which is California, and the state that I spend the most amount of time in. Okay, if there is concerns about the mishandling of prior governments, such as Social Security debt bomb and Medicare debt bomb, I mean, it's an unfathomable amount of money. The fact that this has been allowed to get to this sort of a level should be absolutely outrageous to every single American, and especially younger Americans that are going to be stuck having to pay for this and having lower benefits. And I don't understand why, when you see these sorts of things happening, you're going to ignore the terrible policy positions of the Democrats to vote them in anyway. California was once a Republican state. I have no proof of this, but I reckon that what happened was that the Democrats made deals in California to get support in order to win California. They'll eventually be able to do that in Texas, and eventually Republicans will do it in California, and things will switch.
One thing
But at the end of the day, people need to start voting for what actually makes sense. And I think that you are seeing a trend of people who are really unhappy all over the Western world. You're seeing it in Australia. You're seeing absolute chaos in the UK right now. You're seeing chaos in Germany right now. You're just seeing chaos in France. You're seeing the European Union countries tear themselves apart. I mean, this has to be brought into control at some point.
I've lived in California for 35 years.
Hold on a second. My understanding is that chaos is on both sides, because both the right and the left have been having chaos in those European countries. From my understanding, like I said, you travel a lot more than I do and everything. But
well, the European Union has been Union has been predominantly left.
I have a question to ask you and everything based on what I just said, which is that even on the Trump proposal, some of them don't make that much sense. Because I know one of his ads, because I've been watching that because it keeps popping up on my TV, talks about the amount of gas and how gas is rising, even though gas prices seem to be going down and everything. And he also is suggesting that tariffs will help solve the rise in child care costs, but he doesn't explain how that's going to work. So he's saying that he's going to do the tariffs, and he's saying that it's going to help, but he doesn't explain how it's going to happen and everything.
Okay, so
you're absolutely correct.
Let me answer Shaq before we move on to that. I've lived in California since 1989 and have found it very nice, highly livable. On the other hand, I've made a good living, so I'm insulated from stuff. But I don't know about backroom deals, but I know that we've had some terrible Republican politicians, like Steve Garvey, a baseball hero, is running for senator, and that's great, except that he's super Trumpy. Nobody likes his policies, and he turns out that as a person, he's a piece of crap. He's got all these like illegitimate kids or mistreated kids, and he's a very unappealing, he's virtually ignored because he's just doesn't have any chance of winning. But we had a Republican governor serve too well. We had Gray, who was recalled, who wasn't terrible. He was a GOP governor not too long ago, replaced by Schwarzenegger because he's a movie star, a Republican, but very middle of the road, very progressive, not a great governor, but it was fun to have a movie star, running the state. But California is not terrible. And one thing that contributes to the things about California that are terrible is so many people come out here and make a ton of money that it squeezes poorer people out. And I was arguing with somebody and they made a good criticism of me, which is, I said, you call me a communist. And I'm like, I'm not. I was in the most viciously capitalistic industry there is, entertainment. And that person replied, yeah, you made all your money there, and then after you make your money, then you become a communist socialist.
Okay, so Rick, look, I'm not. By the way, I'm not trying to attack you personally, right? I like you. I consider you. I consider us to be on friendly terms. I'm not attacking you personally. I'm just trying to explain the differences between, I guess, how we're looking at similar issues. Okay, and look, you say California is not a terrible place to live. I can certainly tell you that there has been a decline in the California that I have seen just in the last handful of years, although it has not been as bad as what watching Fox News would lead you to believe, okay? But certainly, I think that California could be a much better place. And one of the things, if we leave aside,
I agree with you about the decline.
So if I leave aside the homeless issues, if I leave aside those issues, it's a difficult place to do business. Why would you? You certainly wouldn't register your head office there unless you had a very good reason to do that. Now, why would you want to have a state where people are reluctant to do that? And people across the world. The last time I was in California, I remember somebody saying to me, "Oh, whatever you do, don't start business up here in California. Go to Nevada, go to Delaware, go to Alaska, go to Wyoming," was a place I was told. So, why would you want to have that? The second thing that I would say is that, yes, California has an issue because wealth drives up prices of assets. It makes housing prices more difficult, etc. I get that, okay? But I don't think that anybody with an ounce of sincerity could actually say that it has been Republican policies that have hurt California over the last couple of decades. I don't think that is true at all. And when you look at shops that have rent of $50,000 and $60,000 a month that are sitting there empty, and other people that own shops on the same street are saying, "Look, don't rent it out for a cheaper price, because if you do, it lowers the value of all of our assets," and things like that. And the reason they're sitting empty is because nobody wants to go to those areas anymore. And the reason they don't want to go there anymore is because of lack of police presence, because of crime being out of control, because of excessive drug use, and etc. There's a problem. And I think that Kamala Harris. I'll just finish this. I think that Kamala Harris is going to have to do a lot of work to try to persuade people in places like Pennsylvania that her ideas from California is a good way to go. And what is she doing? She's now coming out and saying, "Hey, I was a prosecutor." Well, you were just talking before about defunding the police. You were just talking before about wanting to abolish ICE, etc., etc. I don't think this is a compelling argument. I don't think that she's a great candidate, and that's why I don't think that she's going to win, because I actually still think that Virginia is in play. I really don't think she's going to win Pennsylvania if the numbers right now are where they are. And I think she's going to have a difficult time. I can't see her winning Georgia either. And by the way, this thing in New York, although the issues that they're facing in New York are state issues, it reflects upon Democrat principles, especially considering that New York is who has prosecuted Donald Trump most recently.
All right, so let's talk about three things.
Hold on a second. I think
one is the Republican policy that hurts California right now is from 60 years ago, when Reagan was governor and set all the crazy people free. The legislation that you can't hold crazy people for more than 72 hours is a huge problem with the homeless. Second, if I want to
change it.
But hold on.
Hold
on. But that's an old policy. Yeah, the Democrats have all the recent policies. Now, if I want to pitch TV shows, I got to do it in Los Angeles. But I think yesterday in LA at 6 p.m, it hit 117 degrees, which is like 45 in your system.
It was a warm day.
Hot. Now, entertainment people won't put up with that for 10 more years. They'll be like, "F LA, I'm moving to Vancouver or to the Silicon Valley."
Okay, now let's just take that issue. Forget about the weather for a second. Let's take that issue. Where are the Hollywood movies being made?
All over the world.
All over the world.
Exactly. All over the world, except for in Hollywood, right? Unless it has to be done in the studio there. Now, where is all the post-production work being done? Is it being done in California? All over the world, not in California, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, those film producers, they know what they're doing. They know it's a money game. At the end of the day, it's a product that they're trying to sell. They need to save on costs. They need to maximize their profits. Okay? They are going around to places, quite rightfully so. Something I would expect a producer that came to me and asked me for an investment. They will go to countries or to states like Louisiana and Georgia, if you want to stay in the United States, that will give you a tax break for going and shooting a movie there. Then you've got those very same people in that very same industry that lectures the rest of us about why the rich should pay more in taxes, while these Hollywood stars are getting $20 and $30 million a movie. This is why the mainstream people around the world are just totally turned off by being lectured to by people who are very, very wealthy that live in a bubble. That's why they're so turned off. And again, the reason I'm saying this as strongly as I am is because this is what we just saw in 2016. Donald Trump should never have become the president back in 2016. He should never have become the president. He didn't have then, and probably still doesn't really have, the sort of temperament and personality that we would expect from a leader. Okay, even if he wasn't somebody who was particularly well versed in politics and didn't have a lot of political experience, you'd expect a little bit better from the guy. Okay, fine. But he won. Why? Because people were sick and tired of the establishment. Now, when I hear people say, well, he should step down, why don't they run Nikki Haley? When the base of the GOP is saying, or the base of the MAGA Republicans, or whatever you want to call them, is saying, we don't want establishment candidates. We want anti-establishment candidates. So if that's the case, why exactly would you suggest that they would run Nikki Haley? It makes no sense. Just like it doesn't make any sense when you've got, New York City is saying you're going to ban wood-fired pizzas. California is saying you're going to ban non-electric vehicles and things like that. What are you doing?
No,
you can't have electric. You can't have fuel-powered, gas-powered lawnmowers anymore. I mean, people don't want government to be that intrusive. They never have, and California, especially Californians, throughout history, have never wanted that. So I don't understand this change of saying, you know what? Actually, yeah, we do. We now want government to control everything. If we put solar panels on, we want our local state government to have the ability to turn our electricity off and to turn our grid off, and also to stop us from going off grid. Who the hell wants that kind of government control in their life?
Hold on. Just about that, and then we'll move on. The power companies in California are assholes. They're corrupt assholes, and they've been doing what you're talking about, but it's the power companies and whatever political lobbying they can do have made
That's
it
right. And who are they lobbying? They're not lobbying the Republicans, are they? They're lobbying the Democrats.
I grant you your point that in California, Democrats probably have way too much power. They have 2/3 of the electorate. They've got 2/3 of the legislature. And we know from looking at the history of frickin' America and probably every place that you get better governance overall if you have a shift back and forth between the two philosophies, between the let's use government to fix everything and the people who say, no, let's shave government down. The trouble is, in California and in the rest of the U.S., is that a lot of the Republicans are like insane and aren't
Sorry, but again,
wait,
you keep coming back to that point.
Wait. One more thing that's in the news is that the DOJ and the FBI just rolled out these charges for these Republican pundits who were being paid just to pipe in Russian talking points. Okay. See, I know big media wants to go with Russia. It didn't work last time. It's not going to work this time. Okay, Kamala Harris is paying influencers to promote her, and she's paying to bus people into a convention. I mean, if you like, I'm not even going to go down that path. Let me just come back to what you said about the thing going back and forth. I find it so fascinating. I've openly said, I'm actually not that political a person. It's just, and I've explained my reasons why on previous shows. I have never actually voted for the Labor Party, either in Australia or in the United Kingdom. So I voted for the Liberals or other centre-right political parties, and I've voted for the Tories in the UK. I've never, ever voted for the Labor Party there. That doesn't mean I never would, but I never have so far in my life. Now, let's take the UK. What did I say prior to the last election? I said I thought that the Tories had done an abysmal job. They'd mishandled Brexit. They had delivered to the British people a terrible system of governance, and they deserved to lose. Okay? Nobody criticised me for saying that. Now, when I today say that I am absolutely livid at the way that Keir Starmer is running the UK and the amount of upheaval there has been in the UK that I put solely at his feet, okay? The left starts carrying on, no, you can't say that, you're a conservative, this and that. Now, where does that sort of behaviour come from, in my opinion? It comes from the way that Americans act. Because with Americans, I notice the same thing. You can say whatever you want about the Republicans. You can criticise the Republicans as much as you like. You can criticise the United States as much as you like. You can say it's a terrible country, but dare you, especially if you're a foreigner, ever say anything which is complimentary about the US? You say the US is a great country, it's cool, I like it here.
people will immediately lecture you. This has been my experience going through the UK, through the US. They'll immediately lecture you on how bad it is. You say something complimentary about the Republicans and something negative about the Democrats will immediately turn around and say you're a racist or you're a race traitor. You're sexist or you're chauvinistic or you're transphobic or you're homophobic. And at some point, the people, the everyday person who's just trying to survive, and people like me who's not just trying to survive but just doesn't give a shit, I just want to live my life and, have a good time, we start to go, you know what, I've had enough. I'm sick and tired of being lectured to.
So I'm right on the line between standard Democrat and standard middle of the road person. I don't want a lot of talk about trans stuff because it's a culture war. There's more important stuff. I know it's important to trans people and I support trans, but I don't want it to be a big part of the discussion because it's a wedge thing that doesn't solve any of the other frickin' issues.
Pretty big issue to the parents of children, though, isn't it? It's a pretty big issue when parents of children are saying to their school boards that they're not happy with the idea that this stuff is going to be taught to their kids, and that school boards would like for the school system to be able to provide trans care to their children without the parents knowing about it or being informed about it. That's become a pretty big issue. And then what did we see? We started to see parents be investigated by law enforcement authorities, federal law enforcement authorities such as the FBI, for comments that they made. Now, just on that note, that's what we're seeing in the UK now. If you make a comment that is anti-immigration or anti-trans or anti-LGBTQ or whatever, and it's published online, you could be arrested. You could be charged with promoting hate speech. But if you say, "Oh, I hate all white people. I hate the country," no problems. Go for it. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Hold on. We've got Kim here, and Kim has had a chance to break in at all. So, like I said, you've had the time to talk.
Before Kim talks, she's got to unmute. Unmute, Kim.
I think she wanted to say for a while. So, Kim,
unmute.
Unmute.
And also unfreeze.
Unfreeze and unmute.
All right.
I'm not muted now, I don't think.
You're not.
I'm in Albania. Bunek, Albania is a private beach here. Very, very exclusive, beautiful place. We all have beautiful huts here, but they are preparing for a big storm. They've been bringing everything in. Nobody here really speaks English, but I did find a little boy who speaks English. So he's been quite the translator. But you know what, I've learned a lot being in these different countries about how far behind we are. And I think we need to really start focusing more on what we need as a community of people. Like, for instance, unfortunately, Shaq, you're not going to like to hear this, but the Republicans ruined everything for us for alternative energy. And if I want to install solar panels on my house, I can't do it on my own cost effectively, which I know how to do. I worked with someone who patented the means to daisy chain the energy. But if I do it myself cost effectively, say for $1,000 to $2,000, which will work, they will put me in jail, fine me, and make my life miserable. But they will let, I can put it in if I go to the electric company, our power company, and pay $85,000 for 10 or 15 panels that do nothing extra for me than the 2 or 3 panels I really need. Now I come to Greece and I come to Albania. Everyone has 1 or 2 panels on their house, which is more than what you need. They all have a alternative water heater on top of their building, which collects heat and stores. Of course, they have very harsh winters here too, so they know how to insulate them. But what I'm learning is that other countries are putting their people before them. Our country, which calls itself a democracy, has done nothing but divide us between, and Shaq, you know what? I don't care if somebody's Republican or Democrat anymore. All I want is a better country. And I don't think Republicans are doing it. In fact, they're the ones who have cost me the ability not to install whatever alternative energy I want. I will go to jail if I do it. So quite frankly, I am done with the Republicans. I'm tired of all of this whining. But being in all of these other countries and learning that their government are saying doing what's best for the people, to me, really opened my eyes and made me realize how far behind the world we are. We think we're a superpower. We're stupid.
We're a stupid
stupid,
power,
but-
not a
Can
superpower.
I just
Thank
can I just
you.
say something to you
Thank
here?
you.
Thank
You
you.
said to me,
But
You-
I
you
don't
said
like
to
the
me that you
Republicans
thought-
anymore.
Hold on.
Democrats. They're all
Kim,
bad.
you said to me that you
So-
thought that I wouldn't like the comment about what you said about the Republicans. Look, I don't care. I don't live there. You guys do what you like. If you guys introduce the policies that I am saying are bad for America, in my opinion, it's not going to affect me. I'll just go and buy American companies and not pay your taxes. I don't care. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, these policies
The
are not going to
Republicans
affect
have
me.
made it so you don't have to. So if you
Well,
come in when
but-
Trump is in office, you won't have
Hang
to
on,
pay
hang on, no,
taxes as a
hang on.
corporation.
Hold up. Let me finish,
won't.
please. But I notice, and this has been a long-standing thing on this network and on many others, I notice that all the criticism tends to go one way. And whenever I
Not
say
really.
something, hang on a second.
Not really.
Whenever I say something back, all of a sudden I'm like the great defender of the Republican Party. Well, guess what? I've never voted for the Republicans either because I'm not American, right? Not that that matters
but
anymore, apparently.
you-
But
you
but
support-
let me just say,
your
hang on,
words support
hold up,
Republicans more than they do
hold up a
Democrats.
second. But let me just make sure that I understand the logic that's being used here. Rick has just talked about how the big power companies, PGE or whatever it is, over in California, has prevented Californians from being able to do, the sort of solar panel installations that they'd like. A lot of Californians would like to be off grid. A lot of Californians are actually quite anti-government, which is why I don't understand why they vote for Democrats. But that's besides the point. So you actually see him criticizing Democrats in the state of California. You sit there and say, well, the Republicans stopped me from doing it in North Carolina. So therefore, what I should do is I should vote for the party that wants to have even more control over your life. I don't get it.
No,
It'd be like me
I
moving.
want-
It'd be like me moving to the United States and saying, Nick, I've moved to the
don't want
United
a
States
party.
because I want to have as much freedom. I don't want to be told what I can do in my own house. I don't want to be told what I do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and move into a HOA. Now, I've never lived in a HOA. We've got lots of friends that have. And they all tell me, you don't want to live in a HOA, right? So I don't understand if what you want is to get away from bad government, why you would go running to the Democrats who are providing even worse.
Here's the problem. The Democrats are center left right now, but the Republicans aren't center right. I'm not talking about Republican voters, but I'm talking about the Republican voting bloc in Congress is right, is lunatic right, so people don't have two good choices.
Rick, your side of politics is removing the breast buds of 15-year-old girls and putting prepubescent boys on puberty blockers that can lead them to be sterilized. What are you talking about?
We shouldn't do that, but that's not an issue that affects 98%.
No, that's an issue that it's one of the issues that is spoken about the most in today's society all over the Western world, and it's your side that's doing that. And you're trying to say that Republicans are crazy and centre-right people are crazy?
So
You're trying to say your side's centre-left. Centre-left was, hey, we want better working conditions, we want higher pay, we want sick leave and holiday pay, all that sort of stuff. Right, I get all that. I understand all that, okay? But you guys have gone way off on the deep end on some of these issues.
yeah, I don't give a crap about like
You may not, but they do.
not
Look,
they. Most voters don't
on
think
sides.
about trans issues on a daily basis, and making voters think about it is a wedge issue. Now, I thought that puberty blockers sounded like a good idea because it buys you time to decide. They just hold off puberty, buys you time to decide whether you're really trans or not. That sounded great. Now there's new research that said that puberty blockers don't just buy you time, they may do permanent damage. The science in this is new. If it turns out that puberty blockers F you up, then I'm no longer a freaking fan of puberty.
Well, okay. Now, let's hold up there because that I'm not actually accusing you of this, Rick. I'm accusing progressive Democrats, not you personally. When I say you, I'm not saying you personally. You guys have said, well, this is the science. Trust the science. You've said that to any criticism. You've had hospitals and universities say to their staff that if they dare to suggest that a child who comes to them who is questioning their gender identity dares suggest to them that there's something that they'll grow out of, dares to actually tell them some of the consequences, that is somehow a heresy, and they shouldn't do it. Okay?
Yeah,
This is how it's been promoted. If you wanted to do studies, we've talked about this before. If you want to do a study on giving older males more testosterone to see whether that will have any effect on them, okay, make them live longer, anyway, you can't get funding to do such a study. But if you want to do a study on whether giving an 11-year-old girl testosterone would change her outlook, no problems. So the science has been skewed. One of the issues that the US has in relation to this issue is that Europe, after seeing the terrible damage it was doing, decided to go against it. Then all of a sudden, you guys in the US started saying, oh, well, we better actually back off this.
Yeah, okay, so
Yeah,
part
hold
of
on a
trusting
second.
this, hold on, wait, let me say one frickin'
We did-
sentence here responding, which is part of trusting the science, is being willing to change your mind when the new science comes in. Now, that point about get money for, if that's true, if you can get, now there's a lot of money in giving old rich men testosterone so they can keep getting boners.
I don't think it's fair to say that part of trust of science has been prepared to change your mind.
But
When
that's the
people
thing,
who
the
hang
science-
on, when people who weren't persuaded in the first place or who were pointing out the issues with that in the first place were being attacked for being so-called transphobic and anti-LGBTQ, etc. This is the carryover which is going to come into this election. This is what people are talking about. They're talking about all these sorts of issues that's going to affect election outcome.
Trust the fact that we're at the hour, so we have to go.